Hey guys, how's it going? I'm going to do a quick video on the Futaba GYA553 Gyro. Purely because a couple of my subscribers have asked me to do a follow-up on the short that I posted, so make sure you check that out. And also to get a bit more detail about it. So first off, quick confession, I am completely new to gyros. I've never used gyros before up until this week, where I set one up and put it in the 38-inch Skywing laser. I was pretty impressed. It was pretty easy to set up, and well, I say it was easy. The first time around it did take me a couple of hours, but I reckon I'll probably do it in about 5 minutes now that I've learned about it. So that's what this video is about, really, just sharing what I've learned so far. I'm not an expert, but I've learned a bit. So this is only going to apply to this particular gyro, the GYA553, and I've got the instructions at the ready here, because just to remind me of a few of the more intricate settings. Before we go into the gyro though, I'm going to start off with the transmitter. So I'm using the Futaba T18SZ, which works absolutely fine with this gyro. But having said that, if you have the Futaba 16IZ or the Futaba 32MZ, then you will find that it's a lot easier to configure this gyro because more of the settings are included in the software of those transmitters. So hopefully Futaba will do that with all their transmitters going forward, or maybe do a software update for some of the older ones as well. So before we go over to the gyro, let's have a quick look at the settings on the transmitter, because it's pretty important that you get these right, otherwise you'll just get into a mess straight away. Okay, so here we are with my T18SZ. So we're going to start off with the transmitter, just to show you some differences on the configuration of this particular gyro. So already on the right model here, my laser, 38-inch Skywing. So if you go into the airplane menu, you can see there's a gyro option down here. And this is where you can configure all the rates for the gyro. So gyro 0, gyro 2, gyro 3 correspond to different axes on the gyro. So you don't have to set all of those at once. Then you can see that I'm on rate 1 at the moment. Currently set in AVCS mode, but not actually doing anything at all. So it's basically that is gyro off. Next mode, if I flick the SD switch, which I have mapped here, you see that rate 2 turns on. Then I go to normal gyro mode, so it's just really about stabilizing the model. I've got the rates gain set to 50 across all the different axes on the left hand side. Then finally, AVCS, which is the equivalent of heading hold. Now turn that on with the third condition on the switch, and got the rates mode set to 80. So this is all the configuration you can do with this particular transmitter. But if I go off here and just show you a couple of screenshots of the manual for the other transmitters I mentioned, the T18SZ, or I think that's right, SZ, better check that. But if I show you that quickly, you can see that you can do more configuration actually on that transmitter rather than just ones you can do here. So I will come back to configuration, but I want to point it out first in case you're going to go round and round in circles. But let's just turn this off for a moment, because some people think that you need to buy the additional box to be able to configure, and I'll put a link up to that on top or in the description to be able to configure the gyro, but you don't actually need that. You can actually do everything you need by following these manual here. Now, this does look a bit complicated the first time you open it up, but the main settings you really want to check are these ones in the middle here. And these are the settings that you can actually do via the other transmitters, but I can't do via my transmitter. So such as checking the mount direction. Hope you can see that's coming through here. Let's move it a little bit closer for you. There we go. Checking the mount direction, whether the gyros face up, face left, face down, face right. What servo types you have, digital, non-digital. What the wing type's set to, normal. What your S-bus port's doing. And also on the final one is just reset all those settings. So that is all I checked when I plugged the gyro in for the first time. And mine were all set to default. So my gyros face up. I'll show you that in the model in a minute. I am using digital servos. I'm using normal wing type, and the S-bus is normal as well. Now on the right hand side, it gets a little bit more complicated in changing some of the advanced settings, but I'll come back to that right at the very end of the video. Okay, so let's take a look at the gyro setup and the Skywing laser here. So a couple of things to note. Gyro's already mounted because I've obviously been flying this model, but I will pull it out very shortly and just show you what's going on here. But main requirement, I'm using the S-bus 2 receiver. So I'm using the R700 T18SB, which is my go-to receiver. I can get away with a lower spec receiver than this with just the S-Bus port on and a couple of other ports, but you have to have S-Bus 2 for the gyro to work, as far as I'm aware. So configuration. I've got one servo left going into receiver, which is the throttle servo on channel 3. And then you might be able to see, just pull it out, I've got the S-Bus cable going into S-Bus 2. And then that goes in the corresponding S-Bus 2 on the gyro, which you can just see pop her out underneath there as well. Now the rest of the channels are clearly labelled and straightforward. Go back in. Gyro direction. So my gyro is pointing forward. Gyro always has to point forward. You can see the blue arrow there, and that has to point towards the nose of the aircraft. But you can mount the gyro facing up, facing left, facing right, or facing down. And that was the first configuration that I showed you in the instructions, not in my transmitter, but in the instructions is the mount direction. Second off, 2 aileron channels here. I have 2 separate servos in this model for each aileron control, and they're going into aileron and aileron 2. I only have 1 elevator servo, so straight into elevator. If I had a second, it would go into elevator 2. I've also got the rudder connected, and I'm not using the final one. So that's your 3 gyro axis, if you like. Elevator, aileron, and rudder are separate, and you can see from the transmitter you can configure those individually. You can turn them off if you don't want to use the rudder, for example. You can turn that one off and just stick to ailerons and elevator. Don't really know why you'd want to do that, but I've got all 3 enabled in this model. So pretty straightforward. If you're doing manual configuration, there's 2 buttons here, the mode button and the data button, and that's how you go into the settings on the gyro itself. Remember just a few minutes ago I showed you that in the manual, and I'll go through some of that in a minute with you. So to do any of the changes, you can either do that or you can use the box, which I will bring up on the screen. I've forgotten the name of it. So here it is, which allows that configuration, or you can use the other Futaba transmitters that I've already highlighted. So for me, this is how it's configured. Pretty straightforward. Receiver on the throttle, 2 aileron channels, elevator and rudder, pointing forwards as always, and facing up for my configuration. Okay, so I've just hooked up a battery, so I can show you some of these parameter settings and how to change them. So if you look carefully, push the data switch for 3 seconds to go into orange mode. So let's go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3. Now you can see the mode LED is orange, which is what it corresponds to on the left hand side. So mode LED, sorry, yellow. So now means I'm in the mount direction menu. So the default is blue. So you can see blue on the left there. So blue means it's face up. If I wanted to change that, I'll just do a short push on the data switch. On the opposite side here, change the colour, and then that would correspond, and it would save that straight back. If I want to go past this section of the menu, I just do a short push on the mode switch to go to the next one. And now I've got the mode LED is still yellow. And so I'm in the servo type, and it's green or red. So you can see mine is green, which means I'm using digital servos rather than analog servos. So let's push again to go to the next section of the menu. So now we're on to wing type, and I've got a blue light. So blue is either normal, or got Elevon or VTAL, but I've got a normal model here, so I'll stick to blue. And then finally, let's go one more time. Mode LED again. I've now got a red, which means I'm using S-Bus. Again, so I accepted all the defaults there, clearly laid out. Now I could go down to the next menu, which is the reset menu, and issue a reset, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pull the power to come out of that settings, out of these settings. Now again, I know I've laboured the point a little bit, but if you had one of the other transmitters, you could just do all this in the transmitter screen, which makes it a lot easier. But that was quite straightforward, just to accept those defaults. If anything, you may not have your gyro mounted the right way. You might want it left or right or underneath, so then you're just changing the first one. Okay, so I'm going to leave the advanced settings for last, like I said, but I want to point to something that's really important that actually caught me off guard, and this is on the other side, and this is how you connect it. So I've already pointed out how I've connected the gyro up with the very straightforward here, but the important step that I missed off is this transmitter function, and this is mapping the functions to the correct channel on your transmitter. And if you notice as well, there's aileron gain, elevator gain, rudder gain, which are 3 different axes as I refer to them. I only had aileron gain mapped first, and actually, to tell you the truth, I had a couple of these the wrong way around on my transmitter, because on the Futabas you can change them all, and it wasn't working. So that's really what set me back probably about an hour when I was originally setting this up. So let's go and take a look at the transmitter and let you know how you can change that yourself, because you will not get it working if that is not correct. Okay, so back into the transmitter menu. This time we're going to go to the function menu, which is in linkage, and then function. And these are the channels. So these are the channels on the left hand side that need to correspond to the right function as per the instructions. Just grab that again quickly. As per the instructions there we go. So if aileron isn't on channel 1, you're going to have a whole load of problems. Channel 2, channel 4 for rudder, 5 for aileron gain. So let's have a quick look at that. So as you see, aileron is on J1, which for me, depending on obviously what mode you fly, but it's my right joystick, which is my ailerons. Come back out of that. Elevator J2, throttle J3, which is what we're ignoring, rudder J4. Now channel 5 is our first gyro function. So channel 5 is aileron gain. So I've mapped channel 5 to gyro. You can see we've got 3 here, which correspond to the axis. Gyro 0, effectively, or 1, 2, and 3. So I've mapped it to gyro, and I've mapped that to the SD switch, which is a switch that I'm using to toggle the different conditions of the gyro. Now I'll come back to configuration on the switch. We've not covered that yet, but you basically want a 3-way switch. So there's plenty on here. SD, SC is fine, SB, SA, etc. will work fine along the front, and even some on the back, a 3-way. I think there's only a couple of 2-way, matter of fact. So that's why I've got mine mapped, only because I use conditions on the left, rudder switch here, and that's now my new gyro switch. So let's come back and check the others. So aileron 2 is also on J1, because I've got 2 aileron servos. If I had 2 elevator servos, you'd have to map the other elevators to J2. If we go to page, make sure your trims are correct as well. I'm sure you know that. Go to page 2. This is where I was missing the other gyro channels, axes. So gyro 2 and gyro 3 all being mapped to the same switch. So let's go and have a look at that switch configuration. But make sure you've done that, because you'll spend a lot of time with it not working like I did. So let's go back into aeroplane and go back into the gyro itself. And you saw from earlier, let's flip that down, I've got the gyro assigned to the same SD switch, but we've not really told the switch what it's doing. So on the first one, on rate 1, if I go and set the SD switch, it's already assigned, we signed it, and then we set it, you can see that I've got on, off, off. So I want that rate working when the switch is at the bottom. I don't want it working in any other position. Now if I go back a couple of pages and go to this rate 2, you see that rate 2, when I set rate 2, is off, on, because I don't want it effective, because I've already got a rate assigned here. This is going to be saved for the 3rd rate. And then rate 3, set this one, off, on. So that's basically enabling me to, when I toggle between, if you watch the green, on, middle position, on position, between the 3 different rates. And then you can go and configure 0, 2, and 3 in here. So I'm actually doing nothing. Although this says AVCS, which is heading hold, I've actually got nothing configured in here, because nothing's enabled in these rate boxes. In the second one, normal gyro mode, just to give it a bit, make it stable, counteract the wind. You can see that I've got the rates configured here, and I can go and change these. But I've just started off with 50. In tell you the truth, that was spot on. It works really well. And finally, in heading mode, again, you don't have to have that in heading mode. You can change this. You can actually change it per axis as well. I don't need to do that. It's more advanced for me. But you can see I've got heading mode and I've got it set to 80 for each of the channels. And so far that's working absolutely fine. I thank my friend Steve because I've actually copied his configuration on this page here. But again, where I was really going wrong was on the previous menu, which is in linkage, function. I didn't have the functions corresponding to the correct channel and the gyro assigned with the switch assigned as well. Make sure you go to page 2 and do 7 and 8. Again, it's in this manual here, in this tiny little box here. 7 elevator, 8 rudder. To pay special attention to that. I kind of skipped over that and was more concerned about all this stuff on the back. Okay, so we've got one more section to cover, which is the advanced section here, which I haven't done much playing around with, but let's go on to that now. Okay, so let's go back to the instructions to explain what I know about this section so far. So to be really clear, I've not changed anything here. I've just purely done some reading on this. Again, if I had a different transmitter, the 16 or the 32, I could do all this section inside the transmitter and it'd be much, much easier because this gets fiddly pretty quickly. So let's first of all have a quick look at the other transmitters. Again, I will link the instruction manuals for both of these in the description of the YouTube video, just so you can go ahead and download those PDF files, separate manuals. It's not the full transmitter manual, it's the manual for the transmitter and that particular gyro. Okay, so coming back again on the instructions, so if this is a little bit shaky, just trying to hold it close to the camera for you. So this time we're using the mode switch for 3 seconds to get into this menu. And to come out of the menu anytime, you just pull the battery or switch the model off and it'll put the gyro back into the normal mode. So if I push the mode switch for 3 seconds, it should go, the mode light should go red. Now the first option is gyro reverse. So this, I believe, is reversing the direction of the gyro. So mine's normal, it's pointing in the right direction. I'm not gonna mess around with that. No, I beg your pardon, scrap that. This is where it gets confusing. If you look at the left-hand side, you've got aileron. So if I press the mode button for 3 seconds and the mode switch light goes red, I'm on the aileron channel. So then I can use the gyro reverse to reverse the aileron channel for the gyro. So when you come to testing, you know, if you're moving the model to the right and the gyro is not counteracting with the left, it's going more to the right, that's because your reverse needs to be changed. I've left mine on default, which is a green light. The next option for the aileron, so you've still got a red light, is neutral offset. So think of this as your sub trim. So this way of really just trimming that control surface. Put this down a little bit. That's a bit too far away. Let's try that again. So it's trimming the control surface. So if one of your ailerons is down slightly when you switch on the gyro, obviously you don't want to use your sub trims because you can't, because it's affecting the gyro. You can come into this menu here and you can change this configuration here. So you do short push and then you can adjust using the mode or data switch to go up or down on that particular aileron. So this does get a little bit confusing. I did try this just to see if it worked, and it took me a while to get it into the correct menu to the right button, because you can easily go out of this because obviously you only got 2 buttons on the gyro and you're already using the mode to come into this. You've got to make sure you're on the aileron channel, then you're already coming down another one here, so there's another short push on the mode to get to this section, and then you're trying to play with the data and mode switch again to make this adjustment. Short press on the data switch to put it on wait or then adjust it. So it would be on yellow to start off with, then you'd have to do a long hold on either the mode or long hold on either the data to slowly bring the aileron up or down. I found this fiddly. Let's move on. Limit setting. Again, go to the next menu to go to limit setting, still on the aileron channel. This is really if you don't want the gyro to go too far, to move that control surface too far. Obviously you can do that in your condition and your normal rates, but this is for the gyro itself. I've left mine on default and it's working fine. Now where this gets complicated, we've just gone on one run through. If you actually wanted to go to aileron 2 channel or elevator, you have to do this. Push the mode button for 3 seconds to get into this configuration area, but then instead of going to this section, you then push the mode button again for another 3 seconds without pressing any other buttons, and you'll see the light will go violet on the mode side. Get to elevator, press for another 3 seconds, and then it will go green. And once it's green, you can then go back to this menu and do these changes. So as an example, if you want to change elevator, First, get in this main axis settings menu by pressing the mode for 3 seconds. Again for another 3 seconds to jump over aileron red and aileron 2 violet. And then you're again for 3 seconds to get into the elevator green section. You can then go to this section here to reverse the gyro or do the neutral offset or the limit setting. So basically you have this menu section for each of the different channels on the gyro that you're controlling, but it's just where it gets a little bit fiddly trying to get in and around those, which again other transmitters will make it a lot easier. Okay, but again there's more instructions. Gives you a good example there of how to go and change aileron 1. Shame this wasn't elevator, just make it a little bit more complicated so you really get it. There's again the adjustment there on the neutral offset, is showing you how to press these buttons. Go over the page and there's another example there again on the same aileron, and this is the maximum limit settings there example, just showing you how to check it. But talking of checking it, let's go past that and now actually go on to this section which shows you how, the very important bit, you've done all the config, you've set it all up, you plugged it all in correctly, how you go about actually checking the model. So let's go back to the model before that. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful so far, but the really important thing you also want to do is just check everything's working right. We've gone through all the settings, we think we're okay. We want to make sure that, you know, if the model is yawing to the left, that the gyro is pushing in right rudder rather than more left rudder. If the model is rolling to the right, that we're going left ailerons. And of course, both ailerons are moving in the correct direction to make the model go left. So it takes a bit of time just to get this right to make sure all your settings are okay, but at least you know how to change them now. So let me go grab the model off the stand. Okay, so I've made sure the gyro's on the off setting at the moment. Oh, you can't actually see that. Okay, that's better. So you can't see me, but that's okay. Let's grab the transmitter over to one side. Running out of space here rapidly in the workshop. Okay, so gyro is currently off. So the SD switch is at the bottom, and you can see I'm moving it, and you can't hear anything. Nothing's moving at all. No ailerons are moving. Absolutely fine. You see light sequences. You can have a look at instructions. That basically means everything's all okay at the moment. So switch on to normal gyro mode. Bit of stabilization. See, if I move the model left and right, you can see both ailerons are moving in the correct direction. So let's just test that. So if I go left, you see the right aileron's coming out to try and make the model roll to the right. So let's see it again. That's going to be a bit hard to see on this particular camera. See if we can see the elevator. Move back a little bit. It's getting a bit hard to see because it's got blur on it, but that's why you test it anyway. So just, imagine the model's flying. So if it's pitching down, I want up elevator to come in, which just happened there. Pitch down, up elevator comes in, pitch up, down elevator comes in. Rolls to the left, right aileron comes in. Yaw. Got the rudder as well. What's easier to see is we can put on heading hold mode. So switch that over again. Switch it over on the transmitter. But now you can see much more movement because it's really going to hold the last position that it was in. So you can see the down elevator there. So if I was flying, say, into a knife edge position and put some rudder in, and I've let go of the sticks now, it's holding everything there. Because that was the last, there you go, that's a bit easier. That was the last command that the transmitter gave it. If I come off, so again, I've rolled the model, presume I've rolled the model into knife edge. Let's do that here. Let's put in some left rudder, and I've let go. You can just see the rudder still kinked over. I've got no hands on the transmitter, and let's go there. It's over. So actually, let me show you that with the actual video clip which I took on Sunday of me just doing a slow knife edge pass in this heading hold mode. Let's go to that now. Transmitter. So I hope that's helped somebody. Like I said, this is the very first gyro I've had. I'm definitely not an expert on it. I've learned some stuff the hard way of how to configure it, but I've got it working. And I'm really impressed with it. I'm tempted to go and get another one and stick it in my larger laser, my larger extreme flight laser, just to give it a go and have a play around with. I'm not sure if I put them in all my models, to be honest with you. I like the fact it can stabilise the model in windier conditions, but I'm still drawing it out a little bit whether I'm using everything. But for now, it's great fun in the Skywing laser. Absolutely awesome little plane that. Really pleased with it. So give me some feedback. Let me know if it has helped. If it hasn't helped, also let me know. If you've got any particular questions, I'll try and answer it the best way I can, or again, ask some of the crew that I go flying with. Catch you next time. Safe flying. I'll have to switch in one place.